Greetings, folks. Welcome back to the Jason Damico Show. Hope you all are doing well and really excited for today's episode. We'll get into kind of the story about how we got this guest on the show. It's very unique and it's pretty cool. Our guest is a law of attraction teacher with millions of views on YouTube. Her work has been featured in numerous publications, including OMTimes News, Conscious Life News, and the Huffington Post. She's the creator of Raise Your Vibration Today.com. Please welcome to the show, Miss Andrea Schulman. So great to have you.
Hi, thank you for having me. It's so nice to be here.
So just a little quick rundown for the viewers. You know, I found your information through YouTube and just through some random roundabout way where it had to do with the law of attraction, just kind of like a basic 101 thing with the duck, rubber duck video. And I was like, you know, I've heard about this law of attraction thing and manifestation. Let me just kind of dive into this and see what this is all about. And correct me if I'm wrong. It said something to the effect of, you know, use this visualization technique. You kind of run us through it. It's like a little 5-minute video. And this is to display and show how this works and how you can literally manifest parts of your reality and create your reality. So I did it. I was like, okay, cool. You know, I'm picturing the rubber duck, feeling the rubber duck, the whole 9 yards. And then, you know, just kind of tossed it and you say, hey, you know, give it 24 hours, see what happens. So I'm living my life, go back to the day, you go to bed, wake up the next day, doing my routine. And I'm watching this this artist's music video on YouTube. And all of a sudden, I literally see hundreds of rubber ducks in the video. Mm-hmm. I had to do a double take and go back. And I was like, you've got to be kidding me. This is just ridiculous. This is nuts. So that's how I really stumbled upon your work. And then from there, you know, the pandemic and whatnot, just going to the gym and I'd put you on repeat. So you've really, before we get into kind of the questions and everything, I just wanted to personally thank you for your content. It's been really helpful with my personal spiritual journey. And I thought it would just be a great opportunity to have you on the show and kind of, you know, tell the viewers what you're about and dive more into how you got into this in your journey, because I really think it's great.
Well, thank you so much. That's a really wonderful compliment. And yeah, that's why I created that test. Is when I first learned about the law of attraction, to me, it was self-evident. Like I had never heard of it before, but when I heard about it, I saw it everywhere. And in ways like that test worked itself out. And so when I started working on YouTube, that was something I wanted to give other people the opportunity to experience, was to have that kind of an experience where you thought about something and then you saw it so that people would know that it's real. Because I think a lot of people, maybe it's not self-evident to everybody, or there's a lot of information out there about how it's a myth or it's overblown or this or that. And so I really wanted to create something like that. So that means a lot that you tried it out and you saw it and it worked for you.
Yeah, it's fantastic. It was a really great way to just kind of get introduced to it. Me personally, I come from a Judeo-Christian background, and it depends on what churches you go to. And I know that I believe you have a Catholic background from what I have heard in one of the videos. So it can get a little weird, right? You know, people, denominations, you know, different belief systems, different customs. And, you know, I have written down here universal principles / laws of nature, laws of thought. It's like this stuff transcends all of that, you know, LOA work and manifestation and positive, negative attraction. So for me, when I dove into your work, it really wasn't, fortunately, I think I had enough of an open mind where I didn't have too many limiting beliefs. So it was able to stick. Yeah. But I feel bad for a lot of people that, because I remember when I was younger, I would get really freaked out or frustrated with, you read things in the Bible, passages in the Bible, and it just doesn't seep in, or it's not personal, and you don't feel it sometimes. I don't know if you had any of those moments in your journey and how you got here. And we'll take a step back and kind of go more towards your beginning stages. But is that kind of do you find that often when you were coaching at one point, where there can be kind of this stigma with LOA and manifestation and all these things?
Yeah, I think when you're coming at it from like the religious perspective, as you're
Right.
mentioning, I think that can be a sticking point for a lot of people. And I understand why. You know, you've been raised in an environment, you're told this is how it is, and that it's wrong to think outside of that. And if we're using words and terminology that are not specifically in the Bible or in whatever religious texts that you are using, it can seem like it's a completely foreign concept, and it has nothing to do with your spiritual texts or your religious background and beliefs. And so I think that can be very scary and off-putting for some people, is that, you know, the Bible doesn't really talk about manifesting. It doesn't say law of attraction.
Right.
It certainly doesn't talk about raising your vibration. So, you know, all of that can sound perhaps a little too new agey for some folks, or even like witchcraft, or, you know, going in a whole other direction. So
Right.
yeah, that is a sticking point for some people, you know, that they may actually even believe in the concepts or have an inkling of the concepts, but the way that it's packaged can rub up against what they've been brought up with.
For sure. For sure. I'd love to take a dive into kind of your beginning stages with how you got into this. And for those that have heard of you on YouTube that are, you know, that follow my podcast, they may already know this, but for those that don't, you had some struggles at a certain point in your life with some addiction and some things prior to that. And would love to just kind of get into some of those key points of how this came about for you. Was it a self-discovery period? Were there other people talking about it? Would love to just kind of hear your beginning stages on how you started the journey.
Yeah, when I found it, it felt like it came out of nowhere. So this wasn't something I had heard about for a long period of time. Now I feel like it's everywhere, and perhaps it was everywhere back then too, but I was not a match to that information
Right.
for a very long period of time. So I stumbled into it around the age of 30, and I'm about to be 42. So this is 12 years that we're working with now of knowing this. Okay. Prior to that, you know, I grew up in a home where I grew up in a very restricted home. So my parents were very strict disciplinarians. They struggle a lot with their own anxieties and their own stuff. Okay. But within the home, everything was very restricted. So I wasn't allowed to do very much. Not really allowed to leave the house too often. Didn't have a lot of freedoms. We'll put it that way. Okay. And, you know, one of the things I understand now about raising kids is that it's good to give kids a little bit of freedom so that they know what to do with it. All right. And the reason that I mentioned that is that when I left my parents' home as a young adult, all of a sudden I had all the freedom in the world because no one was telling me what to do anymore. But because I hadn't learned how to manage my freedom and to take care of myself in a respectful way, I went and just did all the bad stuff. I did all the drinking. I worked as a bartender and lived a party lifestyle, and even sold drugs for a short period of time. So I definitely really went for it in that department, and was dealing with a lot of, now I can look back on it and recognize that I was dealing with a lot of depression and anxiety at the time. And in addition to all the substance abuse, I also developed an eating disorder, and I was bulimic. So I was like addicted to food. I was addicted to purging. I was addicted to drinking. I mean, I was a mess. Yeah. So that was how I led through my young adulthood, and always kind of had, Like you mentioned before, I grew up in a Catholic home. So I grew up around religious principles, but I always remember going into the church and being like, it doesn't make sense to me somehow. Like the way the message is coming through just didn't make sense. And I always had the feeling there was something more, there was something higher. In fact, I always feel like I'd always even communicated with what you might say is God or the universe. I could have conversations with a higher presence. But in my young adulthood, they were mostly very angry conversations because my life was in the toilet and I was really angry at the universe, angry at God, however you wanted to put it. But I had kind of some turning points where I started to kind of get my act together. I ended up going into teaching. So I'd gone to college and I wandered around after for a while, but I decided I wanted to get my act together and become a teacher, and very serendipitously got into a high school teaching profession in the field of psychology. And my dad was a psychologist, and I have a background in psychology within my academic background.
Mhm.
So for me, that was a really good fit. And I really think that was perhaps the beginning of being led to the law of attraction. Um, you know, but what was really kind of going underneath the surface this whole time was I got this job. And I'm like, okay, I've got my act together. I got this job. I like this job, but it feels like I'm supposed to be doing something more. Again, I always have kind of these conversations with a higher presence, and it just felt like there was something off about the job. I was supposed to be doing something different, something that in my mind felt what was something unusual, something not something standard. So I had no idea what it was. So, kind of fast forward a little bit. And as you probably know, most teachers have a winter break and they have a summer break. So around Christmas time, all the kids go away and you get a break. And for some reason, I got it in my head that I was going to figure out what I was going to do for a profession. Like I seriously thought that over the course of 2 weeks, I would be able to logically figure out the career of my dreams. So I go on, winter break, and on winter break, we're doing all the Christmas stuff, wrapping the presents, putting the tree together, and time just gets away from me. And I don't actually spend any time thinking about what I'm going to do professionally. Christmas comes and goes, and we're at the tail end of the break. And I remember, oh yeah, I'm supposed to decide my next big career move. So I go and sit down at the kitchen table with like a notepad and something to write on. Like I'm going to be able to write this out and figure it out. And I sit there and I'm stumped, of course. And I get an idea. I'm like, you know what? Forget this. Let's go watch something on Netflix. So I go wander into the living room. I open up Netflix, and looking through the documentaries, I always kind of like watching documentaries. One popped out at me, which was The Secret, which I believe has been on Netflix now for like the longest period of time, because every time I go, I see it on there. But the description of The Secret's like, hey, you want to really know what you're supposed to be doing with your life and have this really great, awesome stuff. I'm like, well, that's exactly what I'm looking for. So let me go ahead and watch this. And I think the way that it all lined up and the timing of it happening in that way, when I was watching it, just this light bulb went off like, oh, I finally get it. I understand now why my life has been crap. I understand why I've been so miserable. And it's been because of, oh my God, it's been because of me. That's why. And the funniest thing about that story is that obviously that led to my career change, because this is what I'm teaching people now. But in the moment, I didn't realize that. I just had this massive awakening of, oh my God, like you got to get your act together, like get your mind straight. And it set me down this trajectory of learning about the law of attraction and figuring out how to apply it, how to correct all of the negative programming that was going on in my mind. And it was several years before I got the insight to actually go out and teach this to other people. But that's what the funniest thing was. Like I sat down to figure out my career, and I didn't even realize I figured out my career in that moment. It took a few years for me to see how all the pieces fit together. So that's a long story, but
That's great.
that's how it weaved together.
I don't know if I ever really knew. I mean, I've watched a lot of videos, listened to a lot of videos while at the gym, driving. I don't know if I ever got that much in depth of the story. So that's really great that you touched on it so detailed. And like with I have so many things we could talk about, and I know our time's limited. I'd love to talk really like more into your personal experience with maybe, you know, we use the word resistance a lot. We use the word block a lot. From your experience, you've got some more years in this than I have, and you have a career based out of it. So I really would love to get. I'd love to talk a little bit more into resistance. And when you started discovering this and you started going through the journey, the excitement probably was more so than the resistance. Was there ever a spot where things were starting to balance out? And how did you find a way to keep the excitement and enthusiasm up in the journey? Because it almost feels like in some ways, me personally, I can say that I've like kind of psyched myself out at times, like, whoa, this actually works.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to stop doing it because it's this weird subconscious thing. So I was
Mhm.
curious if you actually have dealt with that before and if even the question makes sense, but I thought I'd pitch it to you.
I think it does. I think I know what you're talking about, or at least I feel like I have a similar kind of experience. So like when I first learned about the law of attraction, I was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. And it was just pure almost ecstasy and bliss about the whole thing. Like so
Right.
excited. It's like when you saw those ducks, you're like, oh my God, this is amazing. And you
Right.
have this, wow. Okay. Well, that experience comes from releasing resistance. So if you've been holding back with an idea that's very self-limiting for a very long time, and you suddenly let it go, there's this rush of exhilaration because you're letting go of something that's been holding you back. So the analogy, I don't know, I think if you've ever heard of Bashar, this may be his analogy, I think. But the idea is that resistance is like a rubber band, pulling back on a rubber band. So as long as you're holding on to an idea that's negative in nature, it's like there's all this tension on the band. And the
Yeah.
second you let go of the band, it just shoots up into the sky. Okay. And so that's what that ride of fun is. But it's only going to take you so far because you took the ride of getting off of that resistance. So to get another ride like that requires releasing more resistance. So the progression as like a human being, okay, we live on this planet that's built on limitations. So you know, we have physical limitations. We have the experience of you're over there, I'm over here, there's walls on this house, there's a door I got to open. Those are limitations. Okay. And they're built from the mind. The mind has constructed those limitations. But when you shatter any of those, you get the exhilarating ride. And so, you know, if you want to keep having that experience, the goal is to identify, okay, now what do I want to let go of? Now, what piece of the frustration do I want to release? You let go of that one, you can have another ride. But you can't just keep going to the same well because that experience is inherent to that process of releasing whatever tension you have with inside yourself.
Sure. Yeah. And it's you know, subconscious programming, that's one thing that I've been getting into the last year. And I heard about it for years. You know, again, you just you're in college or you're in high school or whatever, and you don't have time to dive into stuff like that. Or it doesn't sink in. And I've got to say, there's really something to be said about it. Once you start going down the rabbit hole, it can be really daunting.
Mm,
Like whoa.
yeah.
Even like some of the Enneagram material and some other things, Myers-Briggs, you know, you start looking at yourself in a way where, oh, I actually knew this was there, but I was either suppressing it, repressing it, or whatever. So you get into affirmations on the channel and programming. Would love to just kind of touch on that in this interview. When did it really start clicking for you? When did you really start finding that niche of affirmations that work? And I know that this opens up a whole can of worms because you go through a batch, then they kind of they'll fizzle out. You get a new batch, or maybe you're not in the right feeling while you're doing it. Neville Goddard talks about the secret is in the feeling. So just some thoughts on affirmations and kind of your journey with them.
That's a great question. And again, it speaks to that idea of the energy petering out, right?
It definitely
Yeah,
can. Yeah.
it absolutely can. So, and this is another issue some people take with the law of attraction, is that they will find techniques that either just don't work for them, or they work for a while and they don't work.
Right.
So that's kind of what people are experiencing. And so the thing that's important to understand is that vibration is king. So your energetic state is the primary factor in what your reality is going to be. It's not the words that you're saying, it's not the journaling, it's not the vision board. The feeling, the vibrational energetic feeling that you're emitting is what is creating your reality. So vibration is king. And so if there are any techniques that you're doing that you're not feeling that excited about, they're not working for you in that moment. That's a very important thing to understand. The purpose of the things like the affirmations and finding what's working. When I talk about affirmations on the channel, what I'm really talking about is just repetition and habitual programming in a way to get your mind just thinking differently. So with the subconscious mind, what's really going on is the subconscious mind is actually a really great thing, because if we had to think about every single little thing we had to do today, we would be very overwhelmed. Like today, I got to wake up. I got to sit up in my bed. I got to pull the covers off, every single little thing like that.
Yeah.
It would be the worst life ever. Right. So what the mind has done is it compartmentalizes a lot of that information into what we call the subconscious mind. And so this is the place where all of your habits reside. So if you get up every morning, like I do, and one of the first things you do is get a cup of coffee, no one has to tell you to do that. Like, that's just not something that just happens. Like you may have had your coffee and didn't even realize you had your coffee because it's just running on autopilot. And so the subconscious mind is built up of all of those habits, and those habits do impact how you feel. Some of your habits have a positive impact on you that do actually raise your vibration so that you can emit the energy that you want in order to receive. Whereas some of your habits put you into a lowered vibrational state. So like if every time someone cuts you off in traffic, you blow a gasket, okay, that's your habit. Well, then every single time that happens, you're lowering your frequency and you're starting to miscreate into your reality things that you don't want to see. And so the purpose of the affirmation really isn't to make something come to you like right this moment. The purpose of the affirmation is to rewire the mind to think a new thought habitually, like I am loved, I am abundant, things are working out for me, so that you condition yourself to just automatically say those things to yourself without even thinking about them, just like you would if you were going to go get your cup of coffee. You don't even think about it. So that's really the purpose of the affirmation. The purpose of the affirmation is to condition the mind to have higher frequency habits so that you can stay in that higher resonance more consistently throughout the course of your day to make your life a lot easier.
That's great. That's great. And that triggers also momentum. Another thing that you talk about quite often, where it's obviously easier when you have the momentum moving in your favor in a positive direction.
Yeah.
We all get in ruts. We all can really, get in those negative slumps. And I think I'm an introvert as well. We were talking about, you said you were an introvert before the camera was rolling. I feel like in social settings, right? And I may be wrong with this. Correct me if I'm wrong on your end, but for me personally, being in those situations can kind of attract more negative thoughts, as far as you're not an extrovert by nature. So just in that, it's like, all right, well, this is not typically my zone. I got to warm up a little bit, kind of feel the room out. So with momentum, I guess another good question I could ask you would be, how do you keep the momentum moving? If you start feeling the vibration drop per se, for you, what are some of the best ways that you've seen over the last decade on how to keep that moving upward?
Well, to refer back to the subconscious programming and the habits, okay, what has been most effective for me has been conditioning a habit. And so I'll share the habit with you. And so, anyone who's listening,
Sure.
or you, if you want to try it out, it takes some guts to do this if you haven't done it before. So at first it may be kind of hard for some people, but it's absolutely worth your while and it will pay off handsomely with dividends. Okay. And the habit is whenever you notice your vibration is dropping, stop whatever you're doing. Take a deep breath and ask yourself, what would I rather be doing right now? And go do that. Now, like I said, it takes guts because you might be in the middle of a heated argument with somebody and it feels like you really should hang in there with that argument.
Wow.
Or, you may be at work and you think your boss may come around the corner and not be really excited to see you hanging out at the water cooler because that's where you wanted to go. And so the mind will tell you this is a bad idea because you need to do this right now.
Wow. Wow. Yeah, that's big. That's deep.
Yeah. But the nice thing about that is you want to go where you're being called for a higher frequency of energy. So like if I'm doing something and it's just not going well, the longer I stay with it, the more the momentum of that's going to build. So if I'm in that argument, the argument's going to get worse. I'm going to think about more and more reasons to be mad at you and stuff that you did last week and 2 weeks ago and 3 years ago that ticked me off so we can keep this argument going. Me stopping the second I can tell I'm getting off and just say, you know what? I'm not feeling good about this. What would feel better? What would I rather be doing? Maybe it's just go in my room and shut the door. Maybe I'd rather go take a nap. Maybe I need something to eat. Maybe I'm hungry. Whatever the answer to that is going to be a behavior or an action that's in a higher state of resonance. So when you go do that behavior, your vibration will raise. And the greatest thing about this whole thing is that whatever the problem was usually disappears. So for instance, like with the argument situation, let's say I'm talking to my husband and I can tell we're about to start arguing and he's making me mad, right? So I'm starting to get mad and I notice it. Okay, time for me to just, let's put a pin in this. I'll be back in a minute. And I go do whatever it is I wanted to do. I go get lost in that activity. Now I'm feeling better. And wouldn't you know it? Sometimes my husband will just come up to me and suddenly say, you know what? I'm really sorry about what I just said. He'll just come and apologize to me. I didn't have to argue. Not the argue. It's over.
Yeah.
Now, before I knew this trick, I never got an apology out of my husband. It never literally ever happened. But now those kinds of things happen where all of a sudden the problem goes away, or, sometimes like maybe I'm working on my website and there's something wrong with the website and I can't get it to work and I leave and then all of a sudden it's working again. Like that's how the problems resolve itself, is that you rise into a higher frequency where the problems don't exist. But you have to condition that as a habit. So it's like every single time you got to give yourself permission to go do what you'd rather be doing.
That's great. That's great. And it also kind of piggybacks on, I can't remember the exact term. It was in one of your videos with maybe following intent. I think it had to do with where you take, you get those random thoughts, or following inspiration. Inspiration is probably a good way to say it, where you, for whatever reason, you feel inspired to go do something that you haven't done before or something you haven't done in a while. For me, it's like golf. I was a big golfer when I was a kid. And then I just, the arts and entertainment and music, acting started taking over when I was a teenager more so. So I kind of dropped it. But during the pandemic, for whatever reason, I just had this huge gumption to go play golf and go hit a bunch of balls. So I would do that. And I realized that it, for whatever reason, it just became a nice way to get away from the routine. Or I would come across somebody and there would be some divine meeting that would take place, some of those random things. So I think it's kind of in the same vein of what you were just talking about.
Absolutely. And that's fantastic advice. What your little strategy right there. I got the inkling to go do this, and maybe it doesn't have anything to do with my current profession, or I haven't done it in a while. And I don't see how it's going to fit in with anything. It just feels like I'm screwing around, going and playing golf, but you're having fun. And so when you're having fun, again, vibration is king. So now you're emitting a positive vibration and you're lining up with good things. So things that you've been wanting will show up very serendipitously. So there'll be some random guy at the golf course, or you'll see a sign on the way there, or something will be in your golf bag that reminded you about XYZ. Like, that's the way that it will work itself out. So you have to give yourself permission to follow these inklings, because you don't, they're calling you. They're
Right.
calling you there. They're calling you to the vibrational state you want to be in and the vibrational plane you want to be existing in. So whenever you get those little tugs to go do stuff like that, always do them. Now, again, takes guts to do that, because maybe you're at work right now. Golf, how are you going to get away with going to play golf? But the tug is there. Honestly, at this stage in the game, I'd say it's worth the gamble.
Yeah. And that has to do with the how, and the how has, for me, it's, I can, again, firsthand experience, I can say it's definitely been something I've been working on, of kind of dismissing the how. The how has been a huge factor in, I think if you're an artist, anybody who's very visual, creative, whatever, I want things to happen this way. And when you're creating something, if you're editing a video, if you're working on content, whatever. So letting go and giving yourself permission and having that freedom, that's been something that I've really been working on. And I agree. It's one of the most, for me, it's been one of the most difficult things in LOA.
Can I share with you my 2022 resolution, because you may want to try it too.
Yeah, please. Yeah.
Give yourself this one full year. So you're starting, it's almost February. So only 11 months. You got 11 months of this. Okay. If you really want to do it, I think it's worth it. But I'm only going to do what I want to do all year. One whole year. Now,
wow.
The reason I'm sharing that with you is because at the end of last year, the holidays come around, and then all of a sudden, I got family, I got kids. You start running around and you kind of forget to keep your Zen in line. And just like you, I'm a creative professional, right? So I have, I'm not a musician, but I make videos, and, you want to make money through that. And it just seemed like all the works were getting jammed up.
Yeah.
Like, this wasn't coming off. This project wasn't working. This one didn't sell as much. And it was just like, everything just kind of tanked. And so right towards the beginning of the year, I'm like, you know what, forget the resolutions. My resolution this year is just, I'm going to do what I want to do all year long, not because I need a course to sell or because I need a video to go viral or any of that stuff, what I want to do. And January is almost over now. And it's been remarkable.
That's great.
How many little things that I didn't have to try. Things are just selling on their own, or this video is doing good over here. I didn't even try. And so I would invite you, if you really want to master this, make that your 2022 resolution. And like, literally, if you don't feel like doing the podcast today, sorry, dude, I'm not doing the podcast. You gotta dodge, and then you're going to be lining up with your creativity in a very authentic way, where it just sings, so, just like if you're singing, or if you're playing an instrument and it's just flowing from you, that's the state you want to be in all the time as a creative. And as creatives, we can get in our own head that way. We get out of that state because we're trying to make it work. No, you got to get in the state first.
Right.
That's what you have to do on a consistent basis.
Yeah, that's been a big thing with me in songwriting, and everybody's got their own different ways of doing it. A lot of people, they work at it daily. For me, it's been my best stuff, as I say, it wrote itself often within 15 minutes at 2 a.m. or whatever, when I was going through scales and made a mistake. And that mistake was something that caught my ear, and I just followed the trail. And, within 20 minutes, we have a full skeleton with lyrics, as far as the skeleton in the music world, just being from the form of the song,
Yeah.
So let me ask you this. This is kind of an out there question, but it's pretty simple. What if you don't know exactly what you want? If you've been stuck in the rat race for so long, whether it's a white collar 9-to-5 type routine or blue collar 9-to-5, whatever, or you've just been grinding and fighting resistance, and you don't know, where's a good place to start for someone who, is just would maybe try that resolution for this year?
A good place to start, if that's too much.
Well, if they don't know exactly what they want to do, as far as, making the announcement, I'm going to do what I want to do. And then,
yeah.
Okay.
So
what do I do now?
Yeah. So let me be more specific, because you're right. That's a very general, because that kind of implies that big things,
Well, yeah. And
I like golf and I
deep.
like this and I like that. And the truth of the matter is, if somebody's holding on to a lot of resistance, they may be very disconnected to some of the larger things that would be fun for them, because they've been so busy doing things in the way that's not effective for them, that they've come to
Right.
identify with that rather than the effective way. So, but anyway, when I say do whatever I want to do, I literally mean that as a moment to moment thing. So, like, when we get done with this podcast, I will be asking myself the question, what do I want to do now? And I will go do that. Maybe it will be, I need to, eat something. Maybe I want to take a break. Maybe I want to read a book. Maybe I want to work on a video. I honestly don't know what I'm going to do when I get off this call. So that's what I mean, is like moment to moment. And no matter how much resistance you may have to a career path or some expression of creativity, you always have impulses of things that you would like to be doing. It's just that most people are in the habit of shutting them off. Like, I know so many people who won't go to the bathroom when they've got to go, because they're just waiting. I don't even know why. Like, I'm just waiting. I got to get through this first, or I'm not going to eat because dinner's later and I want to save up for dinner, but they're hungry now. Like, no, like the vibrational signal is eat now. The vibrational signal is you're tired now. Take a nap. Don't power through work. Take your nap now. So just doing that stuff, I mean, on a very, very small little level, the nice thing about it is it trains you into following your internal guidance. And your internal guidance is kind of this feedback mechanism that you can follow based on how you feel. So when you're feeling good, you're on the right track. When you're feeling bad, you're on the wrong track. It's that simple. Like, the universe plays with you in a game of vibrational hot and cold. And if you're not feeling good, go do what would make you feel better. You'll be moving in the right direction, but like literally moment to moment to moment. So for some people, again, like I said, it could be overwhelming if you're not doing anything like that whatsoever. A whole day like that may be overwhelming for you. But what you could do is, like, let's say you have an afternoon off or a day off, or, I get home from work at 6 and then my time is mine. Within the time that you can give to that practice, follow it religiously. So maybe those 4 hours that you're at home that are your free time, do that religiously during that free time, because what will happen is you'll start to see that when you do that, things work out. They work out, things are going good, things are lining up. And when you go back to work the next day and you do it the other way, you'll see things suck. They're getting worse. This isn't working out. And it will start to train you that, why am I doing it that way? Just do what you want to do. So that's what I would say is, like, if you need to dial it down, pick of your available free time, but then practice it religiously during those time periods.
Yeah. And start implementing it in as you get more comfortable. Yeah. Ease it in. That's great. I want to talk real quick about, so you have a teaching background. Mm-hmm. I'd love to get your thoughts on this. And I've asked other guests that have a similar, they've got spirituality in their background, or they practice LA to a certain extent. The education system. I was homeschooled. I was in private school. I was in public school, went to college, have a lot. I never, I think homeschooling was the closest thing that I got to some of these theories, but I think the question's self-evident with an answer as to why this stuff isn't in the schools. I have my own theories as to why it is, but before we get into that, I'd love to hear from your point of view. Why is this stuff not in the school system? Because to me, this is the essence of life and humanity. Why is this not in there?
Well, it's why I'm not in the school system anymore. So. No, I mean, so again, you have to think about vibrational resonance. So the reason this doesn't exist in schools is because it's not a vibrational match to what schools currently represent. or at least at the time that we're recording this from your and my perspective. So in working in the school system, what I would say about my experience as a teacher is that the school system, as I saw it, was very built on limitation. Okay. So very built on, this is the time you show up. This is the time you leave. Okay.
Yeah.
These are the rules. You have to do this. This is the order. Okay. And please notice that everything we've talked about in this conversation is about, forget that. Just what do you want to do now? Right.
Yeah.
So they're not congruent. Okay.
Yeah.
So forcing yourself to sit in a desk for 5, 6, 7 hours and be force fed material is in stark opposition to, using the law of attraction to your advantage. So it's not, I don't personally believe that there's some kind of conspiracy, over the education system to keep this information out. My experience is that the system as it stands currently, or at least back when I was in it, was not a vibrational match to that energy. And so it just didn't exist in that place. Now, that doesn't mean we can't create differently, but that was my experience as a high school teacher.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
We'll definitely start wrapping up here. There's just no way to cover everything. There's so many great topics.
So many rabbit holes.
There's so many. I will choose a couple more, and pandemic. I think it's kicked up a lot of dust for a lot of people psychologically, with trauma and whatnot. And I remember in one of your videos, you saying, to the extent of, everybody's asking, when is this going to go away? When is this going to go away? Well, it's going to go away when everybody stops thinking about it, talking about it, or making a big thing about it.
Yeah.
And I'd love to get more thoughts on that, but also couple it with trauma and how much trauma work, like if you're doing shadow work or LA, it can turn into this like analysis paralysis thing where if the reticular activation system is just like pinging all the time, it can just turn into work, so how do you find the balance between, okay, well, here are my traumas, here's what I want to work on, but also doing it in a way where you're not like beating yourself over the head doing it?
It's a very good question. Some people don't like the answer. And it's okay. You don't have to like the answer. So it's kind of like if you were, let's say, wanting to go on a diet and wanting to lose weight. Okay. You don't really want to focus too much on taking out the bad. So like getting rid of the pizza, getting rid of the ice cream. You want to more focus on putting in the good. So eating more vegetables, drinking more water, taking more better care, and allowing the momentum of the law of attraction to pick that up and naturally pull away momentum from the other. So the reason I bring that up is that, as human beings, again, we live in a limited plane of existence. So Earth is a place of limitation. So if you're here, congratulations, you have some trauma. You have some, welcome to Earth. So dwelling on the trauma. So, if I was abused, or I went through this drug addiction, or I broke my leg, or I was in this car accident, and thinking about the trauma activates the consciousness in the direction of the trauma. Right. So what can inadvertently happen is people can go through periods. And I know I personally did when I was going through everything was going wrong phase in my life. I went and saw a therapist. I tried to figure things out, but it felt like I was just digging the hole deeper, because what I was doing at the time that I didn't realize was that I was focused on the problem. I was focused on the anxiety. I was focused on the drug addiction. I was focused on the And so it keeps it active, because part of the law of attraction is what you think about, you create.
Right.
So a more effective means of working through your traumas is to let them be what they are. Okay. But instead focus on where you're going and establishing, again, like we were talking about with the subconscious mind, or just in general, focusing on habits that are healthy and self-loving for yourself. So how can I talk nicer to myself today? How can I think more positively today? What kind thing can I do for myself right now? What can I do that I would enjoy doing? Focusing on that stuff, just like you would with your diet, focusing on the good foods. What that will do is it places your emphasis on, I love myself, I'm taking care of myself, I'm moving in a positive direction. And that starts to pick up speed. All the crap is still going to be back there, right? So, everything that happened in the past still happened in the past. So you still will have gotten abused, and you still would have had the drug addiction. You still would, it's all back there. It's still all back there for me, but I don't focus on it. So it isn't holding me down. I let go of it, like the rubber band analogy. Okay. That's how you drop the resistance. You just stop dwelling on it. So that's what I mean by people don't necessarily like the answer, because a lot of times people want to talk about their traumas and they think there's some big cosmic meaning to all this crap that happened to them. And, you live on Earth. That's what happened. You landed in a place of limitation. So you're going to have trauma, because trauma is really just a manifestation of fear and limitation, which you're carrying if you live here in the first place. So try to marginalize it that way. Everyone's got their crap.
Yeah. I think Joyce Meyer talked about in a sermon I remember hearing years ago about, the why God, why question, how it just will plague you, because
absolutely,
you can be sitting there asking that question for a lifetime and never really get an answer.
Well, yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, I'm sure you've heard of this, the concept of it being an infinite universe and an infinite consciousness, infinite hells, infinite heavens, okay, infinite tragedies, infinite wonderful possibilities. Your head can go crazy if you sit there and try to contemplate just how far down the road to hell goes, because it's infinite. Whether or not you want to hear that, a lot of people don't want to hear that. But the good news is, as a consciousness, you have a choice where you're pointed and what you're focused on. You don't have to focus in that direction. So the simple answer is just focus in the other one that takes you on an upward spiral further than you could ever imagine. That's the solution. It's the only solution.
It's big. It's so big. Future plans for you as far as what's next? It sounds like you're going to be doing a lot of what you want to do, which is great for the next year.
I have no plans, Jason.
No plans at all.
I have no plans. Well, if I were to extrapolate outwards, I would imagine that I will continue to work from home. I will continue to make videos. I will continue to, again, do what I want to do. What I would say is my hope for my life's trajectory is that it's as honest and as authentic as possible, and that I can allow myself to let go of any need to perhaps compete within my environment or prove something to other people or all of that ego crap. My goal is to be able to express myself creatively as I am without those attachments. And however that comes about is really quite fine with me. I'm not interested in just pursuing, fame or money or anything just for its own objective. It's more like, again, what do I feel like doing? And is it an authentic expression of what I actually want to be doing? So it's a very non-specific answer, but
no,
that's all I got.
Well, it's great. And it hits a bullet point that I didn't even get to hit because there's not enough time, but ego, I had that written down as far that I think in this day and age, I mean, there's so much hitting you. Now we've got TikTok, we've had Instagram, we've had Facebook, we've had YouTube, we've got podcasts now that are taking, vlogging. Mm-hmm. There's all these different ways of getting yourself out there as a creative and an entrepreneur. And again, the word I used earlier was daunting. It can just be daunting, building a team and making that happen. But again, finding that positivity, finding that enthusiasm to push through and do it. That's been a big thing for me, is finding that place of, what do I want to do? This whole podcast was actually, this was just something told me right before the pandemic hit. It was in 2019 to just, for whatever reason, spend $3 or $4 grand on camera gear and lights. Mm-hmm. And I have no idea why. And then I started dabbling in the podcast. I was a fan of Joe Rogan and just kind of used that format. Mm-hmm. And here we are, 120 episodes later. And it really was it was this great way to just bring people together. I had no idea the pandemic was going to happen, but it was a great way to, then it turned into a Zoom capturing situation because of social distancing and whatever. So, it's funny how these things happen, you know, if you just follow that inspiration. And I'm a 28-year-old male. Like, I'm still working on the ego.
You got time.
I have a lot of work to do on it, and things are really, you know, I'm realizing, wow, you know, that motivation was fueled by this. It wasn't fueled by that. You know, this was fueled more out of fear. It wasn't fueled more out of love.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you know, the other thing too is, like you said, there's a million things you could get into. That's the nature of the universe. There's going to be infinite social medias and platforms. And you didn't got to master all of them. Like,
right.
Which one do you want to do? You know, go do the ones that you want to do. As one creator to another, because I know early on that I kind of went down that rabbit hole. Let me try and have all this stuff going on, and oh my goodness, you know, do the ones you want to do, or do them when you want to do them, you know, but just keep doing whatever it is that you want to do when you want to do it, and things will work out for you exactly as they need to, and in a way that you really enjoy. That's really all you got to do. At the end of the day, it's really simple. It's not complicated creating a good life. It's just giving yourself permission to do what you actually want to be doing.
For sure. Well, this has been great. And as we wrap up, I've got a quick little fun thing I like to do at the end. It's just I call it the shootout, or the whatever word throw. I basically throw a word at the guest that's related, and you say the first word that comes back to mind. There's no right or wrong answers. It's just kind of like a fun.
Oh goodness.
Fun little thing.
All right. Let's go.
Vibration.
Hi.
See, you're already killing this. Like, everybody, and I gotta say real quick, like I said this on an episode, I don't know, 10, 20 episodes back, because everybody who's timid about this just destroys it. Destroys it. I don't know what it is. Everybody,
let me say the right thing.
Everybody who's excited and wants to say the right thing, and I guess this is LA or something, because it's like everybody, you just start pinging it out immediately. There's no expectation. It's a beautiful demonstration of just non-neediness, I guess. I don't know, whatever, but it's every single time. It drives me crazy. It's so fun. Manifestation.
Lost.
This is another good one. Video.
YouTube.
Love.
Hate.
Entrepreneurship.
Business.
Spirituality.
Caramel.
That's going to be a promo clip. That's good. Subconscious.
Terrified.
Reality.
Illuminating.
Faith.
Invigorating.
Florida.
Kind.
And the last one, but the most important, pizza.
Happy.
For sure. Do you have a favorite flavor, like favorite topping?
I love pizza. Pizza is like my favorite food of all time. So my preference with pizza is I like meatball with mushroom and onion.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Whoa. Wow. Wasn't
no
expecting
good?
that.
No?
I was thinking you might be one of those like pineapple people.
Oh, Hawaii. Oh, no. Mm-mm.
Nah.
No, thank you.
Okay.
That's my daughter. She loves that. I don't eat that.
Yeah. So the last question I have that I ask everybody is, if you could go back in time to your 15-year-old self, knowing what you know now, what would you tell her as advice?
Ooh. Well, I guess the cliche answer is I wouldn't go back because I learned all the lessons. And, I don't know. I think probably just go tell her to trust herself more.
Yeah.
Or to be herself more openly, because I remember at that age just being very concerned about trying to do everything the right way and make everybody happy, and thinking somehow that was going to be plausible and actually work. And one of the things I've learned is just be yourself, and it works itself out. You don't ever want to try and package yourself up in a way to make other people happy. So that would probably be the advice that I would give her, is just to be more authentically yourself and it'll work itself out. You don't need to worry about what everybody else thinks or how they're going to respond to you.
It's great. That's great. And it's the everlong, it poses the other question of the everlong, who am I? Because it constantly keeps changing, doesn't it? To a certain degree.
It's the onion, keeps on peeling itself. You learn more and more.
Yeah. Well, raiseyourvibrationtoday.com, the YouTube channel, it's just Andrea Schulman, correct?
Yeah, the YouTube channel is Andrea Schulman, and it's SCHULMAN. I think if you put in Andrea Law of Attraction, you'll see my face. So it's probably the easiest way to do it if you want to find me.
This has been great. I really appreciate your time. This is a lot of fun. And I don't know, maybe I manifested this because this was kind of crazy. Like I'm still in the whole time doing this, like, oh wow, I'm talking with Andrea. This is kind of cool.
I think you did. I get a lot of requests, to be honest with you, for podcasts. I don't take a lot of them. So
yeah, I couldn't find anything on the internet. So
yeah, I don't do a whole lot of these. So
yeah.
So yeah, you definitely did manifest it.
It's thanks to you because of the ducks. It got me down the rabbit hole with it. So
that's a fun one.
Well, thanks so much for your time. You guys have been listening to the Jason Damico Show. Definitely check out Andrea's material if you haven't heard of her already. I know you're going to love it. And we'll see you guys on the next episode. Shout out to Spotify, iTunes, iHeart, and Simplecast. And peace.